Well, good afternoon, folks. Chris Green, the history chap, and I am I'm testing out actually because people have said to me, you should try the live stream on YouTube. And it's one of the things I actually do in my membership. I have live chats, but I use Zoom on that. We have sort of hour-long chats, and we talk about a few historic subjects, but then we also just sort of do a little bit of alternate history and people questioning, bringing up their pet topics as well, and we have a general discussion. So the history chap is well, I guess I got into this whole. Well, I've always loved history. I had a teacher when I was, about 7, Mr. Hands. It's funny how you remember certain teachers' names all these years later. And Mr. Hands was he taught history, and his was a classic style of history. He started sort of right at the beginning, so we had like the Phoenicians and ancient Egyptians, and we sort of worked our way through school years in my sort of junior school, and I just got fascinated by it. And I think there's just so many amazing stories, both inspirational stories, but also just like adventure stories in history. And also, I guess the thing that's over the years that I've really got to realize is that history does go round. And there's like a golden thread of history, as I call it, that connects us to our pasts, but also actually to each other. Because, maybe I've got nothing in common with a guy who's arrived from Ghana, but who knows whether somewhere in the past our families have crossed. Would one of his families, maybe one of my family was, I don't know, a trader or a missionary or something in Africa. And maybe someone in his family actually plucked him out of a river when he fell in. And I'm only here because this black guy who's now living in Birmingham and his descendants is descended from a guy in Ghana. I'm only here because of his family. And so I think that's an amazing sort of thing that history does connect us, and probably connects us a lot more than we like to think. We tend to think in quite adversarial history, and I certainly see quite a lot of that going on in the comment sections in YouTube. And I just think that maybe history should be teaching us a lot more about what we've got in common as much as what we've got against each other or what we've got different. And anyway, fast forward, my love of history, I was one of these smart asses. It's the only subject I really loved at school. I was rubbish at science, really crap at sport. Tried hard, and that's what all the reports used to say. He tries hard, which is like a lovely comment, isn't it? But history was one I really excelled at. And I remember when I was 14, I actually did a research project off my own back. Nothing to do with the school syllabus, all about Cecil Rhodes and the formation of Rhodesia, which has now come through to Zimbabwe. And I sort of followed it from the diamond mines in Kimberley, and which was obviously the source of Cecil Rhodes' wealth. So he became this imperialist. And then I took it all the way through to, right up to Robert Mugabe taking power in Zimbabwe and black majority rule in Zimbabwe. Moving on, I did archaeological digs. I did an archaeological dig at St Albans Abbey, which I would like to say was really interesting. But you know what? It was just dull as ditch water. We were digging away. We were trying to find a part of the. Excuse me, just going to grab a bit of water. I've got a frog in my throat. And I was put in the fine shed, and we were trying to put old tiles from this medieval part of, it basically was a rubbish dump by the side of the cathedral, the abbey. And they had all these old broken medieval tiles, slates off the roof. And we were trying to put them together. And it was rather like having a 10,000 piece jigsaw with half the pieces removed and no picture to go by in the first place. And in the whole summer, we managed to put 4 tiles together. And amazingly, I did 3 of them, which I don't know if that's an accolade or whether I'm just really quite sad person. But anyway, that was that. And then I ended up at university, did my university degree in history, medieval and modern history at the University of Birmingham. And it's only now that I realize actually how brilliant some of the people at the University of Birmingham were, some of the people I was being lectured by. When you're 18, sometimes going to university at 18, great education for the world. I met people, I came from a reasonably, rural part of England. I met more black people in my first week than I'd ever met in my life. I met Jewish people who I'd never met before in my life. So world education, current affairs or whatever you want to call it, was brilliant, general knowledge. But I now look back with my history degree and realize I didn't really put my back into it. If I went there now and realized there were people like Professor Eric Ives, who was probably one of the authorities on Anne Boleyn and Lady Jane Grey and Tudor history, and there's Professor Grenville, who was actually a kinder child, came across from Germany in the 1930s, still had a strong German accent in the 1980s. There was Dr. Bourne, who's heavily involved, or has been heavily involved with the Western Front Association. Carl Chin, who amazingly popped up years later. I always like Carl Chin, a Brummie historian, local history in Birmingham. And would you believe he pops up as the historical advisor on the hit TV program Peaky Blinders, and there is Carl Chin. So anyway, and that's just a bit of a ramble, because today I just wanted to find out what this live was all about. I've actually got a call now with someone about doing a live history talk at one of their organizations, a regimental association. So I better go off and have a chat to them. But I wish you all the very best. Have a great weekend when it gets to you. I have to say, here in Worcestershire, it is looking pretty dull at the moment and looks like the heavens are going to open. But hopefully the heavens won't open for you. And don't forget, today, tomorrow, we are in the week commemorating the Battle of Hastings. So hopefully you have a better weekend than Harold II did at the Battle of Hastings. Anyway, thanks for your time. Take care. See you soon.